Hello, everybody. Welcome to tonight's edition of From the Boardroom to the Locker Room. And we start with the news that I was hoping not to bring you, and that is that the Proteas have failed once again in their attempt to win a Cricket World Cup, whether it be T20 or 50 overs. A valiant display by the South Africans. They rewrote the record books. Their commanding semi-final victory against England saw them post a record-breaking 319 for 7, the highest ever score in a Women's World Cup match, until, of course, the semi-final the next day. Laura Wolfhard delivered a standout World Cup campaign. She led from the front at 169 magnificent innings. She set a new benchmark for the highest individual score by a captain in a World Cup knockout fixture. She finished the tournament as the leading run scorer with 571 runs. And her performances, combined with exemplary leadership, were pivotal to the team's success throughout the tournament. But she was woman alone, to be perfectly honest with you, in the final. Marizanne Cup also continued to etch her name into cricketing history, became the leading wicket-taker in ICC Women's World Cup history with 44 wickets. And Cricket South Africa Chief Executive Officer Poletsi Moseki, who was in attendance in the Dr. Patel Stadium in Navi Mumbai, shared his immense pride in the team's performance and their historic journey to the final. He congratulated Coach Mandla Mashimbi, Captain Laura Wolfhard, and the entire squad for representing South Africa with pride. Reaching the World Cup final is a significant milestone, and the team's consistency throughout the tournament is a testament to their hard work and unity. He said the journey is only the beginning. Well, I know a lot of us will be very upset that they didn't get over the line in the end. They've come so close, closer than any other South African team. But what a performance it was yesterday by the Indians. They were put into bat after the game was delayed by a bit of rain. I was sitting and thinking to myself, oh dear, please, I hope this is not going to be one of those Duckworth-Lewis scenarios. And it didn't materialize in terms of any overs being lost. They just did start a little bit late. And once they got underway, South Africa won the toss, sent the Indians in to bat first. And the Indians posted a very, very competitive score, even as we know the result right now. 298 for 7 in their 50 overs. At one stage, it looked like they were going to get to about 340, 350. The South Africans did pin them back, and then South Africa got off to a reasonably good start, but why, oh why, were they looking for quick singles at the time that they were? They were building the innings so beautifully. Tasman Brits, who has not had the greatest World Cup, but was in superb form coming into the World Cup, really started batting herself into form and then ran herself out. And unfortunately, after that, there was the Annika Bosch came in. She's had a terrible World Cup. Couldn't get a run, even if it was offered to her freely. She was out for a 6-ball duck. And then Shule Loose came in and put together a good partnership, almost getting past the 50-run mark with Laura Wolfhard. You still thought at that stage South Africa were kind of in contention, and then she got herself out. She was caught and bowled by the absolute part-timer Warner, who had fantastic batting performance as well. And then Annerie Dirksen came in. She really does look like a superb player of the future. She got 35 of 37. Again, with Laura Wolfhard, just couldn't go on to get to 100 or 120 run partnership. And then pretty much once her wicket had gone, Wolfhard went to her 100. Another magnificent batting performance by her. But there just were not any partners for long partnerships which would have taken South Africa across the line, because almost right the way through until the end, when wickets did start falling quite quickly, another run out and so on, and then a beautiful catch to end the game off by the Indian captain. South Africa were always well up with the run rate. They were always there and thereabouts. You got to a scenario where you thought just one partnership, just a partnership, and South Africa could have maybe got across the line. But it wasn't to be. And next up for the South Africans will be a trip home, hopefully a hero's welcome, albeit they didn't win. They deserve an absolute huge support when they arrive back in South Africa. And then, of course, rebuilding process. I think one or two players in the side might be parting ways with the team. There's a couple of youngsters that are coming into the team. Coach, I'm hoping, is going to stay on, because he's been quite brilliant getting them to where they are. And overall, a very, very, very good scorecard for the Proteas. I don't think many people would have expected them to get to the final. They did. They've made it through to the final, and unfortunately, they didn't get across the line at the end. But congratulations to Laura Wolfart, Mandla Mashimbi, and all of the players in the Proteas squad and the management who did a brilliant job in India and got South Africa into that final. Well done, South Africa. Let's have a look at what other cricket action there was over the weekend, of which there was plenty. And let's have a look at the results, shall we? So we've mentioned the result, obviously, of the Women's World Cup, India winning that one, and they won by 52 runs, just finally put a pencil mark on the end of that one. Zimbabwe and Afghanistan winning by 9 runs in their game, a thriller, 210 for 3 they scored in their 20 overs. Zimbabwe got close. They got to 201 all out. And then the Lions against Boland. Boland won by 8 runs. A very, very, very interesting game. Boland only scoring 138 all out in 18 overs, and you would have thought that the Lions could have got across the line. Well, they were 130 for 6 in 20 overs. Great bowling by Boland. And then the Northern Cape Heat were 140, chasing the Golden Route Badgers, 164 for 4. The Badgers won that game by 24 runs. And then Western Province against the Dragons. Western Province winning by 4 wickets. And lots and lots of overs to spare, lots of balls to spare. The Dragons were 186 for 5 in 20 overs, very competitive score. And then Western Province 188 for 6 in 16 overs and 5 balls. So 3 overs and a delivery still to be bowled. And that was a very fine performance indeed by the Western Province team. And then in Australia against India, India winning by 5 wickets. Australia 186 for 6 in their 20 overs. Tim David going a bit crazy there again. He really is just a T20 player, but he is so good. And India 188 for 5 coming out victorious in that one. They'll be very happy with that. The Indians, big support for them wherever they play. As far as David is concerned, as I mentioned, 74 to 38 deliveries. And Marcus Stoinis, of all people, 64 39, 26 or 15 by Matthew Short. After the Australians were in a lot of trouble early on in their innings, they managed to get to 186, but still clearly was not enough for them to get across the line. And then on Saturday, there was quite a few matches there. Pakistan against South Africa. South Africa getting hammered. Unfortunately, 139 for 9 in their 20 overs, and that's only thanks to a bit of a swashbuckling innings at the end by Corbin Bosch. Pakistan getting to 140 for 6 off 19 overs. They won that one by 4 wickets. They also won on Friday night. And then the Titans against the Warriors. The Warriors posted a very competitive 193 for 3, and the Titans just collapsed to 107 all out. Big win by the Warriors. Then the Rhinos against Eastern Storm. That match was tied. The Rhinos won in a super over. Nice and exciting there. 116 they each scored. And then in the super over, 6 without loss, the Rhinos, after the Storm batted first in the super over and only scored 5. Lost 2 wickets. And then the Eastern Cape side, 113 for 6. They won by 4 wickets. The Knights, 110 for 7 in 20 overs. So a lot of low scoring in the competition. And then the Dolphins winning their game against the Tuskers, 178 for 5. And then the Tuskers 164 for 7 in their allotted 20 overs, while New Zealand won by 2 wickets against England. England were bowled out for 222 in 40 overs and 2 balls after New Zealand scored 226 for the loss of 8. The New Zealanders winning their by 2 wickets. Now, what are the fixtures for cricket going forward for this week? Well, World Cup now, a month has gone by, done and dusted. That's out of the way. Action today sees the Eastern Storm against the Eastern Cape. That game's at 1 o'clock today. Then tomorrow sees Pakistan against South Africa in the first one-day international. It's fast and furious with white ball cricket at the moment in Pakistan. And then Boland take on Western Province in the T20 Challenge. That's at 6 o'clock tomorrow evening. Wednesday sees New Zealand play the West Indies in the first T20 international. England now gone. New Zealand have the West Indies in their country. And then the T20 Challenge sees the Impalas against the Northern Cape Heat, the Rhinos against the Knights. Thursday, New Zealand against the West Indies in the second T20 international. And then Australia play India in the fourth T20 international. Pakistan and South Africa clash in the second one-day international. And Poland play the Titans in a pool Division 1 game in the T20 competition in South Africa. And then Friday, more action with the Warriors against Western Province, the Dragons against the Hollywood Dolphins. And then on Saturday, Australia play India in fifth of those T20 internationals, while Pakistan plays South Africa in the third one-day international. National Parlors play the Eastern Cape Yatis, the Six-Gun Garden Route Badgers play the Mpumalanga Rhinos, the Lions play the Tuskers, and Sunday New Zealand versus the West Indies in the third T20 International, with Dolphins against the Warriors, and that, of course, is in the South African T20 competition. So lots and lots of action. Lots to play for as we head towards the Test series where South Africa are in India. And they will be playing the Indians in the first Test match. That'll be coming up in 2 weeks' time, just under 2 weeks' time. Right, let's turn our attention now to rugby, and the Springboks got away with a very comprehensive victory on the weekend against Japan, but they come away with a big problem in terms of their star prop forward, Oxenche. He sustained an injury during South Africa's emphatic 61-7 victory over the Japanese at Wembley Stadium on the weekend. Now, Sanati Ntlabakanya has been drafted into the side. He was in England playing at Twickenham on Saturday for the Barbarians against New Zealand. In fact, he scored a try in the second minute, but just a few hours after arriving in, he departed with the Boks for France. He's on his way, or is already in France, the Springbok team, for the match against the French this weekend. Made his Test debut in July against Italy after he played against the Barbarians for the Boks in June. Joined the squad yesterday morning, flew out with them yesterday afternoon, and they're training already, the Springboks, for the big game against France on Saturday evening. Now, unfortunately for Ox, he's already back in South Africa. He was forced off the field against Japan, returned to the country, that's his home country, South Africa, to undergo scans to assess the severity of his injury. Rassie Erasmus says that he doubts that he'll play again this year and certainly won't be playing on the tour as he's already come home. The Springboks touched down in France yesterday afternoon and have begun their on-field preparations for the match on Saturday evening, which will take place at the Stade France. Now, let's have a look at the other rugby action over the weekend, and there was lots and lots of rugby action and some very interesting refereeing decisions, I might add, as well, in the wake of banning of the Bulls prop, which looks as though the Bulls and South African Rugby Union are going to take it further. It was a very weird decision taken in the game between Ireland and New Zealand at Soldier Field in Chicago on Saturday evening, an incident where a referee made an absolute blunder, in my opinion, and sent a player off for a yellow card. And then, make it even worse, it was upgraded to a red card, which is just quite bizarre. I mean, I've seen some horrific tackles. This was nowhere near an horrific tackle and a forward pass before the tackle incident even happened. Be that as it may, the All Blacks won that by 26 points to 13 in an absolutely jam-packed stadium in Chicago. Lots of Irish people live in Chicago, so that was not a surprise. And then Scotland got a magnificent win, 85-0 against the USA, and England beat Australia by 25 points to 7, just showing up how poor Australian rugby is at the moment. That was a big result for the English by 25 points to 7. So the fixtures coming up for the next week are, of course, Test match rugby, as it is right the way through now until the end of the month and early into December. Now, Saturday sees Ireland play Japan. The Irish are on their way back home. Colombia play Mexico. That'll be an interesting game. Scotland against New Zealand at Murrayfield on Saturday afternoon at 5:10. England against Fiji at 20-8. Italy play Australia. I think Italy will be thinking they can get one over the Australians Then the big match of the weekend, there's no doubt whatsoever about it. You can't even think of a bigger clash than the quarterfinal clash of the World Cup. South Africa won by a single point. Well, it's a rematch between those two sides. France against the Springboks. That happens on Saturday evening. And then on Sunday, one more game. Wales play Argentina. That, of course, is in the Principality. So lots of rugby action coming up over the weekend, and we will do a full-on preview on Wednesday with all the rugby going on with our rugby correspondent, Andy Capistanio. Right, Yannick Sinner is the world number one again today after winning the Paris Masters yesterday. He won it for the first time, beating Felix Auger-Aliassime 6-4 and 7-6. The four-time Grand Slam champion reclaims his position atop the world ranking. Merci Paris is what he said afterwards. What an amazing week, unforgettable moments. Thank you for all the support. The 24-year-old's maiden crown in Paris, coupled with incumbent world number one Carlos Alcaraz of Spain crashing out early in the tournament, sees Sinner return to the pinnacle of men's tennis when the ATP rankings were updated today. The Italian first claimed the number one ranking in June last year. He did hold on to it for 65 weeks until he lost the US Open title match to Alcaraz in September. Reclaiming the top spot from his rival in Paris will taste even sweeter for Sinner as he went down in a remarkable five-set final to Alcaraz at Roland Garros earlier in the season. He said today is a very, very special day. All the hard work he's put in this season, despite missing 3 months at the start of the year after twice testing positive for traces of clostebol in March last year, Sinner has now won 5 titles this year, including the Australian Open and Wimbledon. Sunday's victory was his first 1,000 level title since Shanghai last October for the 9th-seeded Canadian Auger-Aliassime. Defeat at the last hurdle in the French capital prevented him from selling up his spot at the ATP finals later this month. Yannick Sinner immediately walked over to hug his team after winning his first Paris Masters. Auger-Aliassime is, however, favourite to claim the 8th and final berth for the season-ending tournament as his run to the title match leapfrogged him ahead of Italy's Lorenzo Musetti in the race for Turin, despite being unable to add a 4th title to his list of achievements so far this season. 25-year-old has enjoyed a renaissance this year and cemented his place back amongst the world's top 10, but we'll see if he makes it into that final event of the year. So they keep complaining about playing too much tennis. Well, Yannick Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz will face off in an exhibition match in South Korea in January ahead of the Australian Open. The Italian, who got past his rival and world number one after winning the Paris Masters for the first time on Sunday, the two best players in men's tennis will meet in the Hyundai Card Super Match, January the 10th in Incheon near Seoul. So these players must stop moaning about the fact that they're playing too much tennis and then they accept to play in an exhibition event like they have now ahead of the Australian Open. So stop moaning, stop complaining, play the game and enjoy it. Hopefully we can all enjoy watching play, which is what we all love to do. So let's just stop moaning about playing too much tennis and just get on with it and actually play. So that's the men's out of the way. Aryna Sabalenka is in action. The WTA finals have got underway, and the world number one was in action in that opening match. She kicked off her quest for a maiden WTA finals title. She blasted 11 aces on her way to a 6-3-6-1 victory over Jasmine Piolini in Riyadh yesterday. Very fine performance indeed by her. The world number one was at her serving best, landing a remarkable 81% of her first serves during the 70-minute contest. Shoot to the summit of the Stephanie Graf group. It was Sabalenka's 60th win of the season. She trails only Iga Swiatek on the WTA leaderboard for matches won in 2025. The 27-year-old Belarusian was handed the year-end world number one trophy in a special ceremony in Riyadh on Saturday. Sabalenka jumped to a 3-0 lead and never, ever looked back. Vera Andreeva, who lost her doubles opener alongside Diana Schneider, said her mysterious absence from Tokyo was a misjudgment. If she had played, she could have secured the 8th and final single spot in Riyadh this week. Andreeva was leapfrogged by Elena Rybakina at the last hurdle of the race to Riyadh. She missed out despite winning a pair of 1,000 level tournaments and reaching 2 Grand Slam quarterfinals this year. So well done to her. And Canadian teenager Victoria Mboko won her second WTA title of the career. 19-year-old outlasted the more experienced Christina Busquets in the final of the Hong Kong Open yesterday. Mboko overpowered the Spaniard 7-5, 6-7, 6-2 at Victoria Park to add the Hong Kong crown to a breakout victory at her home Canadian Open in August. Okay, let's move our attention now to what happened on the golf courses of the world, and it's reminiscent of me to have not mentioned on Friday. Happy birthday, happy 90th birthday to Gary Player. Yes, what a master, what a maestro, what an ambassador for just not only the sport of golf, but for sport in South Africa and sport around the world. And 90 years of age, he is still going strong, and most probably the only man in the world who can shoot a round of golf under his age. Yeah, incredible. Absolutely incredible. Brilliant stuff for Gary Player. Now, let's just look at what happened on the course this weekend, and it was Tom McKibben. He will play at the Masters for the first time and qualified for the British Open after winning the Hong Kong Open by a massive 7 strokes at the weekend. 22-year-old Northern Irishman was a model of consistency all week, leading from round 1 to be victorious on the Asian Tour event in dominant fashion. He was born in Belfast. He was won once on the European Tour in 2023, now plays on the Live Golf Tour, shot an official course record 60 on the opening day to ignite his title challenge, and was in imperious form, walked away with the victory. So well done to Tom McKibben. Victory there, and as I say, Masters and Open qualification. Brilliant stuff. Right, let's just have a look at the other golfing action. Daniel Cronje was the victor on the Sunshine Tour, the Betway Big Easy Tour. Daniel Cronje 8 under par. He shot 5 under in the final round, 202, and a great performance there by him. The Blue Label Unlimited CEOs Cup earlier in the week was won by Philip de Gouvier. So what golf is coming up on the golf schedule this week? Yes, there was a bit of a break on the USPGA Tour. Now the action is fast and furious at the moment. The Sun Dev Batika Vet Lab Masters is currently underway, and there's also action on the Betway Big Easy Blue Label Unlimited Invitational. That is also underway, got underway today. And then the Hyundai Open on the Sunshine Tour, that's in Benoni, starts on the 6th, and the Worldwide Technology Championships on the USPGA Tour gets underway on Thursday. El Cordonal, Alt Diamante, Cabo San Lucas is where that is taking place. And then the Yaz Links in Abu Dhabi, well, the Abu Dhabi HSBC Championship, that's one of the biggest events on the DP World Tour. That is in Dubai at the weekend, or at least it starts on Thursday. Right, let's move our attention now to football, and on the local scene in South Africa, the big match between Sundowns and Pirates in front of a capacity crowd at Loftus Versfeld in Pretoria ended in a 1-1 draw. That, of course, means status quo at the top of the Betway Premiership. It was an opportunity for Orlando Pirates to get closer to Mamelodi Sundowns. It wasn't to be. The other results from the weekend in the Betway Premier League saw Golden Arrows beat Maruma Gallants by 4-0. TS Galaxy beating a very poor Stellenbosch FC by 2-0. Then on Saturday, it was Chippa United 0, AmaZulu 3, Polokwane City and Richards Bay drew 1-1. Orbit College, a 3-1 victory over Magesi. And then on Friday evening, it was a 1-0 victory for Siwelele over Sekakuna, and Chiefs a 1-0 victory away from home against Durban City FC. The table looks like this. At the top of the table, Mamelodi Sundowns, after 11 games, have 22 points. Sekakuna United, 1 game less. They are 2 points behind them, having a fantastic season. And then 9 matches played with 19 points, just 3 behind. In the most powerful position of all of the points on the board, are always most probably the best thing that you can have, is Pirates. 2 games in hand over Sundowns and 3 points behind them. And then Chiefs, also a game in hand on Sundown at the top of the table. They also have 19 points and Amazulu 18. Very close at the top of the Betway Premier League. Not so close at the bottom, although there's quite a few teams that could just fall into that bottom. Orbit College, Richards Bay and Siwalele, along with Stellenbosch FC just above the relegation zone. Stellenbosch FC only above the relegation zone, having conceded fewer goals. And then Magesi and Chipper United in the bottom half of the table. So lots of action still to come in the Betway Premier League. In fact, there are matches through the course of this week and obviously continue right the way through as the season goes and continues. So Amazulu tomorrow evening play Polokwane City, Chipper play Magesi, Chiefs play Orbit College, and Sekakuna play Richards Bay. On Wednesday, Durban City play Maruma Gallants, Golden Arrows will host Orlando Pirates, Sundowns play TS Galaxy, and Stellenbosch FC plays Siwalele. Right, let's move our attention now to the Premier League. And as soon as Erling Haaland starts bashing the ball in the back of the net, you know that Manchester City are going to be in the title race. And that's exactly what he did yesterday afternoon. 2 goals in Man City's 3-1 victory over the high-flying Cherries of Bournemouth. It was their longest unbeaten run in their Premier League history. The Cherries started the day in second, but Andoni Areola's side were undone by scintillating form with the Norwegian striker, who's taken his tally now to 13 Premier League goals in 10 matches. And when Haaland starts scoring like he is, Manchester City starts firing. And that's exactly what Pep Guardiola's team are doing at the moment. It is an ominous sign for everybody in the Premier League. For the results of the fixtures from the weekend, let's go through them for you. West Ham United, how about their 3-1 victory yesterday over Newcastle? They were not rock bottom, but right in the bottom of the Premier League table in the relegation zone, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they found a wonderful result, 3-1. Liverpool beat Aston Villa 2-0 in the late game on Saturday evening. Spurs lost at home to Chelsea 1-0. Nottingham Forest and Manchester United drew 2-2, which makes the fact that Nick and I, my executive producer, are on the speaking level. Fulham 3, Wolves 0, Crystal Palace 2, Brentford 0, Burnley 0, Arsenal 2, Brighton 3, Leeds 0, which means that the top of the Premier League table looks just like this. Arsenal were always going to be top, irrespective of the results at the weekend. They have a 6-point advantage over Manchester City, with Liverpool now in third place with 18 points, so 7 points behind Arsenal. That's a very big gap. I know there's only 10 games played, but it's a long, long season, but it's a massive advantage that Arsenal currently have. Arsenal, Man City, Liverpool, Bournemouth also 18, Spurs 17, and Chelsea now up to 17, along with Sunderland and Manchester United. It is so close. Everybody battling for those European positions. I'm sure it's going to change as the season gets on. And then bottom of the table, Wolverhampton Wanderers, who fired their manager yesterday after their 10th defeat, or the 8th defeat of the season. 2 draws, only 2 points. Nottingham Forest, relegation bound at the moment, with just 6 points from their 10 games. West Ham, as I say, had a good win at the weekend, beating Newcastle. They've moved up into 18th place, with Burnley and Leeds just above them, but they do have a 3-4 point gap as well over them. Fulham, Everton, Leeds, Burnley, the teams just above the relegation zone. So the fixtures coming up for the week. Let's have a look at those fixtures. And it is one game tonight, Sunderland against Everton. And then on Saturday, the early game at Hoppers 2 sees Spurs host Manchester United. Everton play Fulham at 5 o'clock. West Ham play Burnley. Sunderland play Arsenal at 7:30. Then Chelsea play Wolves at 10 o'clock. A whole host of matches on Sunday. Villa versus Bournemouth. Brentford versus Newcastle. Crystal Palace versus Brighton. Nottingham Forest versus Leeds United. And then a 6-point swing at the top of the table when Manchester City host Liverpool at 6:30 on Sunday. That is tonight's edition of From the Boardroom to the Locker Room. There will be more from me through the course of the week. As always, be nice to each other. Until next time, bye for now.